Greetings and welcome this evening of your time as you create time to exist. How are you all? Oh, thank you. Are you all awake?
Yes.
Allow me to entitle this interaction The Light and the Dark Side. Understand as a foundation, as we have always shared, as we have emphasized in these interactions, that creation itself is a single, in one way of looking at it, statement. It is one thing. In the manifestation of the one thing that is creation are many facets, and often you will refer to yourself as but a facet, but in reality, you are an expression of the totality itself. And everything emanates from one idea, one event. Sometimes in your society, you have the saying, all is one. And foundationally and fundamentally, this is true. For all that is, what you call God, is one expression, one manifestation, one statement, though, again, has the apparency of many facets. But it all boils down to the one, the whole, and therefore anything, all ideas, all things, places, people, and so forth, relationships, are all divisions or subdivisions or facets within one whole. It all boils down to that whole. Again, we refer to it as all that is, because that leaves nothing out. All that is the pure energy itself of unconditional love. And only from unconditional love could you have a reality where all things are possible, where, with no conditions imposed upon the facets in creation, each facet is free to explore whatever it is they wish to explore. What you call, therefore, good and evil or light and dark are truly two facets, but of one expression. When you understand and realize this as the one expression, you get the integrated result. When you separate it and assign power to one or the other at the cost of its opposite, you then get that effect. Therefore, good and evil, what we refer to as positive and negative, are both expressions but of one overall idea. For the purposes of practicality, since you are your reality and do not exist within a reality that is only an apparency that you create to explore, you may understand that these ideas, what you call light and what you call the dark side, must, by definition, both exist within you. So therefore, there is no sense in that way to deny either or the other, for you contain it all. And it is not a matter of anything except what do you emphasize? What do you place your attention upon? And therefore, what do you subsequently create and manifest in your life? So allow us, for the purposes, again, of remaining practical, to define the light and define the dark, so to speak, side from the following perspective. When you understand that everything is all one thing, and you are a direct expression of that one thing, and nothing is separate from you, therefore you understand you contain it all. It again is not a matter of getting rid of anything, for where will you put it? You are the entire creation. There is no outside. You cannot say, this is what I wish to manifest, and this is in exile from my reality, for there is simply nowhere to put anything. You contain it all. It is all within you. Denying something within you, paradoxically, does not give it less of an effect. but actually gives it more of an effect, because that denial, though you do not always consciously allow yourself to see this, is a form of extra attention placed upon something. So therefore, denying something that is within you does not make it disappear or go away. It simply, perhaps you can say, creates a state whereby you seem to store it, or shall I say, place it in a dark space where it will not bother you. But again, understand, all ideas you are denying, due to the fact that denial is a form of attention, will at some point present themselves to you so that you can have the opportunity to acknowledge and integrate it, rather than continue to deny it, which again gives it strength, but then puts it again in a dark place where you will choose not to look at it. So therefore, allow us to define the light as your willingness to acknowledge. Acknowledgement of anything that lies within you is bringing it to the light so that it can be seen, as you say, in the light of day, and therefore can then be dealt with. You can then decide if you prefer it or not, and in deciding perhaps that you do not prefer something, but acknowledging that you contain it, that acknowledgement equalizes it to all other things, rather than adding more attention to it. Once you acknowledge an idea and equalize it to all other ideas, you then have equal access to choose all other ideas, for you are not giving more weight to the thing that you deny. So you may understand that your willingness to acknowledge anything within you is, again, the light, is bringing the ideas that you have placed in the dark space within you. As an analogy, there is no physical space that this occupies. Being brought to the surface can be, in that sense, the only thing you need do to allow yourself to shed light upon that idea and understand that you can integrate it and you can transform it if you do not prefer it. The dark side, as you say, again, is part of all that is, part of the whole. When you assign a separate label to it, therefore give it the opportunity to be empowered by you, then it can seem to have a life of its own, and it can seem to be a force influencing you. But truly, the only thing that creates the dark side is denial. And therefore, the only thing that it ever will require from you to, shall I say, transform the dark side is your willingness to allow ideas as they come up, and we are generally speaking of ideas within you that you do not prefer, to be acknowledged. Well, yes, I do believe this. Perhaps it is something that is antisocial. Perhaps it is something that everyone knows you should not do. But nevertheless, yes, at this time I find that if I am honest with myself, I do believe this. Any idea that you take this approach with is now, through that acknowledgement, been removed, so to speak, from the dark side and placed upon, perhaps you can say, the table before you, and been held up to the light of day. One concept that your society will often harbor is the idea that you have the ability to create something which you cannot handle. You have the ability, and again, this is your societal notion for many individuals, to create something which can actually overcome you. However, allow me to share. To us, this is an irony, is a paradox. For the fact that you are creating something in your life is in and of itself all the evidence you need to understand that you can handle it. For again, there are no extraneous ideas within creation. If you label something extraneous, perhaps you can get that effect. But ultimately, everything that is in creation by definition belongs, or it would not be there. If you understand this and look at it and approach it that way and use it in that way, it becomes quite evident how it belongs. If you assume that it overcomes you, or that any idea for that matter could, you then deny that idea, and then again usually will create some version of what we have referred to as a subconscious closet to toss that idea in, which again will perhaps for this conversation correspond to the dark side. This closet has no life of its own. Perhaps you can say you create a seeming door, and the things that you stuff, so to speak, within that closet, as you continue to deny them, may knock louder and louder. But the reason that they are knocking is for your acknowledgement, is for the reason that when you acknowledge them, you can then transform them. And the transforming of the very things that you deny will enable you to transform the, shall I say, style of the creation of your life toward the style of creating according to preference. So in understanding that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that you can create that can overcome you, understand by extension that there is nothing within you that you need be afraid to acknowledge. Once you acknowledge something, this does not mean it is your lot in life or that the acknowledgement is a condonement, but it is being honest with yourself and then allowing you to assess, do I prefer this or not? But until you acknowledge it, it is not within your grasp. It is not back within your power to transform it, for you are not even acknowledging that it is a belief. And before you can change any belief, you must at least have come to terms with it that you contain that belief and that that is the belief that you are expressing. Now, one of the main reasons that we share this with you, along with the concept that you can create nothing that can overcome you, is that you may understand very clearly that your thoughts are all safe to think. Evaluating, exploring within your mind does not create an effect in your life. Looking at what is negative within you does not automatically, right away in this reality, create that thing in your life. In this reality, when you act with the negative idea, then yes, you get a negative effect. But to say that thoughts are things is only partially true in your reality. Now, ultimately, thoughts are things, yes. But many of the thoughts you have that do not become things are things in other dimensions of experience, not your own. So thoughts being things as a literal idea right now in your explorations is not entirely accurate and does not entirely take into consideration the actual mechanism. And again, in your physical exploration, that mechanism is having a belief, an emotion, and a thought, and then doing something, acting. With that belief, emotion, and thought as a foundation, it is then those actions which are subtly, shall I say, affected by the belief, emotion, and thought that creates the effect. So by thinking a negative thought and not acting upon it, you cannot create an effect from it in your reality at this time in your development. This allows you to understand once again that anything that you wish to explore in your mentality is safe to explore. You only create it if you then get up and do something with that as a concept. But if you do nothing, it is entirely, shall I say, a safe space to evaluate your thinking. Many times this simple recognition will allow individuals to begin to honestly dialogue with themselves. And as you wish to transform who you are and are willing to trust that it is within your ability to do so, then your reality delivers your denied beliefs, delivers, shall I say, perhaps you can say concepts that you have relegated to your dark side, to your awareness, so that you can acknowledge it, so that you can learn not only from the positive things that you have created in your life, but from the negative manifestations as well. For all ideas are your creations. And as you are willing to live and create your reality according to preference, your reality then affords you the opportunity to see where you, quote unquote, still hang up by presenting to you many of these beliefs that you no longer prefer so that you can transform them. But I remind you, when a belief is presented to you, it is not just that presentation that allows you to transform it. It is your willingness to acknowledge it that allows you to transform it. Well, I do believe that. Perhaps I wish I did not, but if I am honest, I do. That owning of a belief is, again, the transference of that concept from, perhaps you can say, your dark side, colloquially, to the light of your consciousness for recognition. You will generally find, as you decide to transform, that your beliefs will come up through, shall I say, several avenues for you to examine. Now again, as I have shared, as you believe something, so you then feel that way. Belief yields emotion. Emotion yields thought. Belief, emotion, and thought all together then yield an action which creates the reality. Therefore, you can trace backward to establish your beliefs. You can see how you are acting and ask yourself, what must any person who is acting this way believe? And then if you are honest, the belief will be forthcoming. You can see how you are thinking. How would any person thinking this way believe? What must a person who thinks this way believe? And also, to trace back one more step, if you are feeling something, perhaps particularly negative, that is an opportunity always to trace down a limiting belief. For again, you must believe something to generate a feeling. So if the feeling is negative, 9 times out of 10, you will find that it traces back to a negative limiting belief. Acknowledgement is the light. Denial is the dark side. Both exist within you. You cannot get rid of either. Therefore, you get to choose between them. Choosing between them, not denying the thing that you do not choose, is the act of a conscious creator. You need not invalidate the thing that you do not choose. It will have the right and the reason to exist, perhaps for someone else. And therefore, as you begin to choose positive and act that way, you will continue to expand. And because your reality contains positive and negative, that expansion will include more awareness of both. But there is a vast difference, I once again remind you, between awareness and experience. And again, this is one of the points of the beginning of this interaction. You can be aware of anything without it affecting your life, as long as you do not act with that as a premise. So as you are willing to entertain the negativity within you, bring it to the light and acknowledge it, choose the positive and act according to the positive, you transform the negative effects from your life, and your expanding awareness of both positivity and negativity takes place through observing others performing and getting negative results. So again, you will still be aware, but it will be through others if you flawlessly decide to act according to the positive and trust that. Nothing within you can overcome you. And if you have ever experienced that something can, understand that is the degree of your power to create, whereby you create it all. So thereby, even if you create a scenario where it seems like you do not create it, paradoxically, you are creating that as well. And so much is the unconditional love of all that is that you can create anything you wish without any conditions imposed upon you. And if you do not fulfill those conditions, all that is will withdraw its love. No. All that is, or God, is unconditional love itself and can do nothing but love you for what you are. Perhaps again, you may wish at some point in understanding the constancy of this unconditional love to perhaps entertain the thought of treating yourself with that same respect. We in interacting with you. For particular individuals will sometimes represent the dark side simply because we are unknown. Simply because individuals will choose to deny our existence. Now, we do not insist that you believe in us, and this is one of the reasons that we communicate to you in this format, to allow you, through our unconditional love, the choice. But perhaps you may understand that the time for this, in this form, is somewhat short. For again, as we have shared, your government is aware of our existence, and sooner or later, perhaps sooner, so will your society be. But only is the timing of this in accordance with individuals beginning to explore parts of their consciousness, which they have heretofore labeled alien. And this is one of the things metaphorically, symbolically, that we will represent. Aside from the idea of representing literal physical beings that live on another planet, we will also represent symbolically to many individuals the things within them that they have not viewed. And thus sometimes, again, individuals will assume that we are from the dark side. But you will find at least the extraterrestrials that we are in contact with very much function from the light. For we are acknowledging who we are acknowledging your sovereignty, your divinity, and do so in the form of what you would call complete non-interference with your societal choices. For you too have that complete free will, are unconditionally loved by all that is, and have the choice to believe in us or not. As again, a critical number of individuals begin to entertain the notion, you will therefore and find that you will see external reflections or external happenings or symbols that we do indeed exist. It is still a bit loose, but this will be crystallizing depending upon decisions that are now being discussed in what you call your governmental structure. Therefore, allow us to thank you for entertaining the notion that such a thing is possible. We do not insist in any way that you believe who we say we are. It is not important. We have noticed, again, in your society, a tendency, no offense, but the tendency has been to latch on to the messenger, many times at the cost of the message. And what we are here to share is the fundamental information that allows us all to express personal divinity, personal sovereignty. And therefore, as you begin to and express your power, you become more alike the vibration of many other societies that have already done so. Then we can meet you as your friends, as your equals, and not have people falling down and bowing right and left. This is something we would not in that way prefer, and will not interact with your society physically until we are satisfied that this will, in general, not be the case. For it would be a disservice to you. No one is any better than you. You are not better than one another. All creation is equal. No matter what your particular focus is, whether it be narrow, contracted, or expanded and sublime, all expressions of consciousness are completely equal in the eyes of all that is. For your willingness to act as such an equal, to entertain us and allow us to interact with you, which also allows us to know that much more about ourselves, I thank you. And I ask you how I may be of service to you. Shut it.
Elan,
Ice.
today I had an interesting experience.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do share.
Well, the thing that you were talking about, the dark side, the dark thoughts, and are things that we're unwilling to look at.
Well, again, your societal tendency is to view it as a force that has momentum, that has power. That is one of the two forces that you are strung between. And there is a tug of war going on. But this does not take into consideration that all of these parts exist within one whole. And that You will not get rid of negativity by choosing positivity, but you will make negativity irrelevant to who you are. It will not be something that you tend to interact with, but it will still exist. For again, denial does not take into consideration that everything is one expression. Do proceed.
So today I stopped denying something, and I looked at it. I acknowledged it, and now I find that it frees me. It frees me up. I feel about 5 pounds lighter.
Well, it is not the idea that ever had the force or held you back. It was the denial. And thank you for illustrating my point.
Yes. The thing about that is, now that I've looked at the dark side there, as we want to call it, the dark side, and I acknowledged it. There were times I would do meditation, and dark beings would come and they would say that they are from the dark side and all that.
Embrace them, as you say. Hug them,
Yeah.
kiss them, ask them as your children. Deliver your message. Understand what is within your subconscious closet can, in that sense, be viewed as obnoxious disturbances and distractions in your life. But in that way, that is a separative label that then separates you from access to acknowledging and transforming. If you will simply redefine them, if you will simply put it more in the perspective as viewing them as your children, crying, and simply understand that the acknowledgement is enough in that sense, is all the child in the closet wants. You will understand that there is no great force there, simply something within you seeking to be recognized. Do proceed.
So what I hear you saying is that the process that I went through today to recognize that, I could have done that myself by embracing the dark, these dark things that came to me in meditation, and acknowledge them, and then I would have gotten the message.
Well, that may be one symbolic way that you can access it, but understand that you achieve that effect when you acknowledge the idea. So either way.
I don't understand.
You had said to me that you acknowledged something and it took a great weight home.
Yeah.
That is analogous or synonymous with hugging those dark beings. But they are more of an analogy than literal beings that exist in a dark realm.
Yeah.
They are not separate from you. They are not something that can do something to you. They are a symbol within your consciousness that you heretofore had separated from yourself, and then through denial, so to speak, taken the light from. But understand that in acknowledging them, if you now have that same meditation, you will see different faces and figures now that the light is upon them. But that light is simply your willingness to acknowledge, period.
Now, the other question with those same what do I want to call it? Feelings? Or the dark secrets that I hid away.
Perhaps denied things within you.
Yeah, the things that I denied. It's what I read in the message that you're giving about the past has nothing to do with the present. But isn't that...
Well, certain events in the past may seem to have led to events in the present. One stone may lead to another as a stepping stone. But once you are in the present, that past no longer has any effect on this now moment, except what you assume it does, and then act like it does, and then get the effect through those actions in the aforementioned process we had mentioned. So it is not that one thing does not seem to lead to another. In a linear reality, that is the apparency. They are all actually discrete moments. However, there is the apparency that one leads to another. But once you are in this moment, no past event has any hold upon you until you say so. and then act that way and then get that effect and say, see, it did.
Okay.
That is one other way to explain.
Yes.
Is that more clear?
That is.
Oh.
Very much so.
Is that?
I had another question, if I might.
Oh.
I had a private session with you, and I asked you if I was there on as a signing with you, and you said in a sense. I didn't understand that.
For now, simply understand. Since we would seem, in comparison to your time stream, to exist in a future, so to speak, and again, I understand this does not always translate clearly, you may make the decision as to whether or not you will quote-unquote reincarnate to our society. At this point, the decision goes back and forth, so therefore you sort of have decided and you are sort of there. That is the best I can translate this idea.
Okay. So it'd be nice seeing you, sir.
Oh. But understand that the reality you are within now is the one that you have chosen. And the individuals that you are interacting with now are the ones that you wish to see now. But we thank you for the sentiment.
Is there an alien side to me?
Well, that is, in a sense, an arbitrary question. You are all infinite beings. Therefore, this is by no means your first life, and this is by no means your quote-unquote first planet that you have existed upon. Since you are all literally in being infinite from everywhere at some point, another way to say it is that you are from nowhere in particular. You have many connections, but only are the ones that are relevant to who you are right now important to who you are right now. So again, I stray your attention back to your earthbound reality. That is what you, in a sense, need be concerned with. That is the point.
Thank you.
And to you. Sherry.
Lon? Hi.
Greeting.
I wanted to comment on the article. It didn't come out exactly the way we wanted, and I'm wondering, was it supposed to come out the way it did?
You are referring to the article
Can I get
about
that?
us and
Oh.
others.
Yeah.
Well, understand, first of all, as we have always shared, there are no supposed tos. However, there is the fact that everything is synchronicity. Now, it is up to you to determine if you will interpret that synchronicity as negative and get a negative effect, or positive and get a positive effect. But that is completely up to you. From our perspective, the statement itself is quite neutral and perhaps somewhat amusing. But understand that if you understand and completely embrace your own validity, then no matter what anyone else thinks, you will not be affected by their judgment. If you are affected by someone's judgment, you believe on some level what they are saying. You are matching that judgment as self-judgment. I think it's an excellent offer.
Okay, well, there's two ways of looking at it. One way is I think it's important to get the word out about extraterrestrials, and it's introducing a lot of people to the concept. And I'm glad about that, although some of the article seems to poke fun and...
Well, understand that to us, that is a compliment. Poking fun, making light, having a good time. There need be nothing so serious about all this. Having a good time and lightening up is in effect one of the things that will allow you to express your ecstasy. It is simply one version, one opinion. It introduces many ideas that are not mainstream to your society. So therefore allows individuals who would not come in contact in any way with any of these ideas to simply see that they exist. Some people will, in that sense, match the invalidation, turn the page. Others will attract themselves to certain things by seeing exactly what they need to see, exactly when they need to see it. So Perhaps the question is for you, what will you interpret it as? What effect will you get from it? To me, it is quite positive.
Okay. Do you want me to answer that question, or is that a
Up to
question?
you.
No, I won't answer the question.
Now, certain things that we shared about synchronicity were quoted. And in fact, one major idea that we share with you, the idea being that not just synchronicity occurring, but your awareness that everything is synchronicity and acting that way is one of the keys to beginning to create your life in any given moment according to preference. That was presented in my particular perspective quite clearly.
Okay, well, I'll tell you my problem right now.
It's your what?
Okay, well,
Your situation that you have not allowed to transform.
okay, it's a decision. Okay,
Oh.
it's this other article I'm writing for this other magazine. I'm afraid they're going to change my article, and
Well, you have seen that that is altogether possible.
okay, well, I guess I have to make my mind. Okay.
Perhaps you may wish to consult with the channel as well. That is up to you. Is that
No. I mentioned something else. At Henrietta's this week, we went over to the cross and on a property that's supposed to be where the vortex is. And when we got close to the cross, to me, it seemed like time was standing still. And it almost was like the cross had a life of its own.
well?
Comment on that?
Apparently, your sense that it did resulted in you creating certain changes that you then experienced and ascribed externally. But I remind you, nothing happens to you, everything happens from you. And also, again, it is not that time stood still, in as much as you create less time. When time, quote, flies by when you're having fun, it is simply that you are engaged being who you are without hesitation, without doubt, and literally create less time compared to what you call the mass consciousness stream of time creation. But it was your creation.
That's all for now.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you. Shut it. Hey.
Greetings again.
And good.
You mentioned that we would never create anything we couldn't handle.
Well, again, I also mentioned that you can create that appearance. But the idea is that you are creating a scenario where you seem to be creating something that you cannot handle. Ultimately, you are still the creator. And understanding, entertaining the notion that you cannot create anything that you cannot handle, and approaching a situation which may seem overwhelming from that perspective will always give you the opportunity to realize what I am saying.
Has anyone ever created something they can't handle?
No. Say, for instance, that an individual creates a situation that results in their physical death. One individual may say, well, obviously, they created something they can't handle, but the individual creating that circumstance, who is now a non-physical soul, understanding they still exist, understands that they could handle even that.
Then the definition of non-handleability might be that
Assigning the meaning that you cannot handle, acting that way, and getting a seeming effect of that nature. Oh, is that all? If something else comes up, do share.
You know,
Shut
on
up.
that same subject, please.
Oh,
In the book, Seth Speaks, he said that someone dies and they can't accept that the spirit guides would take on shapes of Jesus or whatever entity they believed in and would help them through that.
as we have shared, individuals will in general create upon death whatever they believe to be most likely. So it is not that it is created for them, but they will supply whatever symbols, again, they find to be most, shall I say, likely. If that is their ideology, if that is their strongest belief, that will be what they will experience.
I thought it was there to assist them in acting.
Well, for them to assist themselves, again, you are assuming this outer power that is separate from you. You are an expression of that power, not separate from it. needing to reconnect. Therefore, bring it back home, bring it back to yourself.
But then
When you are in this reality and have a belief, you then create a gradient, an emotion, a thought, an action, then you get the manifestation. Upon physical death, in what you sometimes refer to as the astral state, the state that you refer to as the nighttime sleeping dream can simply remove the middle steps. And when you believe something, you immediately then experience as a discrete reality.
okay, I was thinking that they couldn't handle going into the astral state.
Well, obviously they did by providing those symbols for themselves. And at some point the recognition comes, aha, this masquerade was provided to me by me, and thank you, self.
Elan,
One moment, is that okay?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Sharon.
last month you said that where you exist, there's no such thing as accidental death. And then you went on to another subject.
Well, in my particular opinion, there is no such thing as accidental death in your reality either, perhaps unexpected.
oh, I
But
see.
since everything is synchronicity, nothing is an accident, something that you do not intend may occur. In our particular society, since every act and every creation is a conscious creation, generally things of a negative nature do not occur at all, for that is not something we are exploring. So therefore, something unexpectedly negative will be, for all intents and purposes, non-existent.
Not to say that we have accidental death here either. Just
Well, again,
unexpected, as you
perhaps
said.
not what you expect, but in the overall scheme, part of the synchronicity of your creation.
Now, as we sit here, do you see us as individuals? In other words, my name is Dawn. Do you see me, Dawn, versus my sister-in-law, Mary Ann, next to me? Do you see us differently? Do you see each one of us as individuals, or are we just...
We identify you as individuals, yes. Though, at the same time, we do not draw a separation as you all being facets of one whole. Now, again, many times when explaining this becomes confusing, but perhaps the most accurate way to state it is that we view you as the relationship of who you define yourself to be in comparison with all the rest. So in the one sense, see you as a facet of one whole. In another sense, though, have the ability to discern and interact with you as what you call an individual.
So,
But I do not physically see you. I perceive you, I sense you in my imagination on my end. Now, were I to quote unquote land upon your planet in my craft, I could behold you with my quote unquote physical eyes, much in the way that you perceive yourself. Though our perceptive visual, shall I say, range is slightly more acute than your own.
I
So
don't
we
know.
may see nuances that you do not see. Perhaps what you call your electromagnetic field, what you sometimes refer to as your aura, and other ideas that are not always to your visual perception.
oh, so you do perceive us in that manner then?
Well, when we are viewing you face to face, yes.
Oh, I see.
In the form where I am lying in repose upon my craft on what you would call projection table, I sense you as a relationship of energy that allows me to discern you as an individual.
Oh, but as we sit here, then we're just a facet of the whole. This group here in the room.
Well, again,
Yeah.
at the same time, I can discern you as an individual and can therefore then have interactions with you as an individual with continuity.
And that would be where on another plane of some sort. Could you explain some terminology that I get confused a lot?
Absolutely.
Um,
Do proceed.
The higher self.
Higher self is
soul.
simply your soul, your oversoul, your higher self, in a sense,
They're the
may
same.
all be interchangeable or synonymous. It is what you may refer to as your totality, knowing itself as that totality. Your physical self is an aspect or a facet of that totality, one of the definitions of which is to seem to remove the knowledge of 99.99% of that totality. Does that explain or make things more difficult?
Well, I keep trying to put an image in my mind of where the souls are. I mean, is there like something floating around out there?
Well, again,
Or
you are
is there
ascribing
a
a
grid work?
physical attribute to a fundamentally non-physical idea. And again, perhaps, again, for the purposes of some frame of reference, understand your soul does not exist within your body. Your body and your entire reality exist within your soul. So perhaps this will reorient.
Okay. And then the universal mind is what?
Well, that is sometimes a reference to all that is, but understand again that you are all that is. Most people, shall I say, create a degree of difficulty accepting this, so therefore all that is or God is over here, and then they see themselves as here. Your oversoul includes both.
Okay.
Your oversoul understands itself as a discrete identity expression of all that is and does not draw any separation. But your oversoul and the, shall I say, consciousness of your oversoul will be largely imperceptible or untranslatable to your physical self. For your physical self is a finite being. And though infinity can, perhaps you can say, understand and express finiteness, finiteness by definition will have a degree of difficulty in perceiving infinity. For finiteness is a fine focus, infinity is a total, shall I say, lack of focus that includes everything, if that translates.
Yes, it is difficult to perceive. Oh, you're right.
Well, you are getting an idea once again, and simply in whatever way imagery is provided to you from your imagination, simply understanding the reality exists within your soul. When you transform, physically die, or when you transform to a less dense state of physicality, one of the characteristics is that when you get in that sense, when you create yourself in the next level of physicalness, a less limited physical reality, which is akin to our reality, we refer to this as fourth density, and your particular reality may be referred to as third density, slightly denser conglomeration of consciousness. In our density, we still remain physical, but are more expanded, less contracted, less dense. And the next density, fifth density, would be non-physical. One of the characteristics of moving from one density to the next is when you become a fourth density manifestation, you understand that third density, the reality that you have just left, rather than that you existed within it, existed within you. And as you move again from expansion to expansion, you realize that the reality you have just come from is within you, not that you were within it. Is that clear or more confusing?
No, it's actually clearer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have done it all. Is that all?
For now, yes.
Oh, thank you. Sharon. Yes.
Hi,
Greetings. How are you? Oh, right one.
I feel really good. In that you were saying that we are all our aspects together, and we're an aspect of the wholeness, expressing our wholeness. At least that's kind of confusing, and I just was thinking about my excitement in channeling and how excited I feel when I'm with you and with other friends and when I'm channeling. And I also have a part of me a whole part of me that I want to
Oh,
acknowledge.
I'll create a whole part. Oh,
That I want to bring out of the dark, which is my doubt about channeling.
then let's, as you say, nail you on this one. Or the idea is, what is doubt? Is doubt a lack of trust? No. Doubt is an infinite trust in the thing you say you don't prefer. So it is not a matter of raising faith, gaining trust. It is a matter of acknowledging where you are placing the trust so that you then have the power through that acknowledgement to choose something else. So very exciting. Congratulations. You know you are trusting in something you don't prefer. That is the first step.
Okay.
Now, what is it in saying that you have doubt? What is it that you must be trusting in?
I must be trusting in fear about what people think about me when I'm channeling. In
Oh.
that, and also that I know also that this channeling is just me. Is me.
Well, if all individuals around you were to ridicule you, scorn you, and cast you from their reality, would you survive?
Yeah.
Well, so what you are saying to me is that worst case scenario, you are still fine.
Right.
Does that still come up as the fear, or does something else come up?
something else.
And what would that be?
It's
Follow
that-
the thread.
that I feel that channeling sometimes for me is I just get confused because I feel like I'm channeling this information that consciously I haven't allowed myself to remember. Then again, I am consciously allowing myself to remember it because I'm channeling it.
Oh, well, if you need to draw a separation, if you need to have a label as to where you are channeling it, quote unquote, from, the most empowering perspective, the most empowering approach would be to simply understand it as your higher self. Therefore, you can still take full responsibility for what is coming through and simply understand that you are playing a game of timing and a game of dissemination of when your higher self and your physical self are meeting in the middle.
Right.
Therefore, allow it to be an effortless process. Allow it to be joyful. Allow it to be an expression of who you are. There will in general, roughly in your reality, be 50% individuals who will think you are crazy and 50% who will think you are absolutely right on the mark. If you would seem in that sense through the fear to attract the 50% who think you are crazy, it may appear everyone thinks you're crazy. If you allow yourself to trust that you will only attract the reality you are the vibration of, and your eye will then fall on the 50% who understand what you are doing, it will seem like a majority, if not everyone, appreciates what you are doing. It is simply a matter of where you focus your attention. Both things exist. Denying one will only give it more weight. Acknowledging both and choosing the one you prefer gives you your power back.
Right.
So when will you channel?
Whatever I want. Now.
You just did.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay.
Is there something else? And before you proceed, I will say that I sense that there is.
Yes. I've had interactions with another channel, and an entity, Elihu, is supposedly a guide of mine. Do you know this entity or this vibration, Elihu?
Yes, I recognize the energy. It will have more to do with your earth plane, however, than our particular perspective.
Okay, I've got a lot of earth plane kind of energies coming through.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun, including dolphins.
This will allow you to keep your information grounded. For if what you discuss sounds nice, but is not applicable in your reality, there is no methodology through which to ground it. And this is one of the reasons that we emphatically discuss in these interactions action, grounded, doing, but setting up the perspective according to preference.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that all for now?
The other thing is dolphins in my Miami area. I've been not yet contacting them physically, and I hear them and know they're there. Is there any information you can give me about my anxious feeling to get in touch with them?
Our particular perception, simply as a matter of location,
Yeah.
is that perhaps what you are seeking would be more, shall I say, prevalent in what you call your keys area,
Okay.
in terms of the individuals that you are actually in contact with. Trust where you are attracted, and you will find what I am saying.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your willingness as a firefly to shine so bright. We thank you. Shut it.
Fine.
Yes.
I find it interesting that you mentioned there's a 50-50 balance in people that seem to believe along what I believe and people that don't.
Well, again, what you attract will change the appearancy of that percentage. But approximately, you may understand, approximately that is how your reality will fall.
Well, it seems to come down to one vote. In other words, a very small difference would change the path. Is there a meaning? Is this something that's been going on a long time, or is this something timely for us now? This balance being so close.
Perhaps the recognition of the balance and the willingness to be the one through your own action to tip the scale is the point. Or you will find as you attract those positive individuals who are aligned with what you are doing and continue through the joy to interact in that way, some of what you call the quote unquote negatively oriented beings, many times through curiosity, other times through being quote unquote sick and tired of getting the negative effect, will attract themselves to the event that you are creating, thereby seemingly tipping the scales. But perhaps again, you will understand if you are to say positively oriented, negatively oriented, it is not quite a 50-50% split. We were simply saying opinions about a particular thing will relatively fall into that percentage to give you an idea that which part of that percentage that you attract and interact with, and then subsequently what you think is prevalent will depend on your choice. If you choose from preference, you will begin to seem to see more than that 50%, for that 50% will encompass your entire view. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
I believe so. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Shut it. Yes, female.
I had an experience today that I've not yet allowed to transform.
Oh, right.
And I
How
was
exciting.
Yes, and I'm just wondering if we could maybe quickly get to the bottom of it. Again.
Quickly, all right. Time's up.
Okay,
Do proceed.
there was an in-law thing, and we talked a little bit about that in my private session with you.
Thanks.
And just, I guess, well, it's kind of specific, but I got an invitation to a party that they absolutely know I could never be there at that time that day. And I just...
Well, how thoughtful of them.
I know.
Does not sound like you feel that.
Well, you're being sarcastic, aren't you?
No. You were invited to a party. How thoughtful. Now, apparently, this is not the way you are working.
No.
But do proceed.
No, it's just that it's a day and time that there's no way we can be there.
Oh,
And I'm just
would you
wondering-
have, in that sense, felt better if you were not invited?
No, I feel like I got invited so they wouldn't feel guilty. You know what I'm saying?
Did you ask them that?
No.
Why would you assume that? Is there not the possibility that out of their love, they simply also invite you?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Now, which would you prefer to attract as a reality?
But out of their love for me, they invited me.
Does that feel better than the other idea felt?
Yeah, but if I decide that that's what it is, then that's what it is.
The idea,
Like, I'm
perhaps
wondering
more appropriately, is why do you automatically assume the negative and then create a corresponding negative emotion? How does that serve you?
Well, I'm just wondering what am I believing that I do that? That's I guess what I want to get to the bottom of it. I mean, I just saw that and assumed, well,
All right.
do you know what I'm saying?
If out of guilt they invited you,
Yeah.
what do you believe about yourself?
About myself.
Yes.
Well, what it makes me believe is that they don't really want us to come, but let's be.
Perhaps you will find that it will behoove you in your reality to take individuals at face value if you do not believe what they are saying. Simply in that sense, address that and then allow them to, in that sense, communicate. But what you are doing is creating a momentum of negative emotion on a supposition. Now, perhaps the question I am asking is why do you have a tendency to have that supposition, which is a negative supposition?
Must be negative feelings about myself.
Oh, that is perfectly fine. You cannot change them until you acknowledge them. If you deny them, you will not even be looking at that as an issue, as an aspect, and you will not address it.
Okay, so it's like a self-invalidation thing.
You tell me. Does what I am saying to this degree feel correct?
Yes.
Oh, now, how can you transform? What would you prefer? And what would the preferred you do in this situation?
I guess I'd call. I'd RSVP and say thank you, but I can't make it.
Oh. How does that feel?
Fine, then I'll send a gift anyway, I guess.
Well, nice touch.
On a different note, do you know somebody named Shala?
Not by that nomenclature. Can you describe?
I just had not just, but a week ago or so had an experience with I'm guessing an ET whose name I thought was Shala.
Our particular perspective is that it may have more earthly connections than you are imagining.
Oh.
Approach it from that point of view and more will become evident. We understand what you are speaking of.
You do? Okay, so you're saying this is a person maybe that's I know?
For now, do not fixate on a label that might limit you, a guide,
Okay.
but need not be removed from your grounded earthly reality.
Okay.
Now, back to what we were just discussing. How do you truly feel? Did we address the issues, or is there still something, as you say, hanging up?
No, I feel like there is something still hanging up, but I'm not sure what it is.
Oh, during this interaction, when it flashes and becomes apparent, do share again. There is one more level to this conversation, but it will, in that sense, require your own acknowledgement within you. You have gotten the idea of what I am sharing. You are close. All right.
Okay.
You may all pause for a short break, and we will resume contact in 10 to 15 of your minutes of counting. All right, I'll say, continue sharing.
Hello?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you about extraterrestrials. You're positive extraterrestrials.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you say the Zetas are negative?
No.
But there is such a thing as negative extraterrestrials.
Well, there is such a thing as negative beings and positive beings in general. You will find that individuals who remain steeped in that sense in negativity will generally not, quote unquote, get very far technologically.
Well,
There are exceptions, but the idea is what you can attract and what you can interact with will solely depend on your orientation in what you put out. Again, you only experience a reality that you are the vibration of. If your vibration is unconditional love and light, literally, I mean this literally, negative entities can't find you. They, in a sense, shall I say, empowering their dark side cannot stand up to that type of light. If your perspective is one of fear, which is in many ways the same as saying that the thing you do not prefer is most likely, then through that fear, then perhaps you could attract them.
okay. Well, it seems to be, to me anyway, that most people in the world are afraid of extraterrestrials.
Well, that is not our perception.
Oh, that's not
And you
your
will even
perception.
understand that saying that most individuals involved in the detainments, or what your society calls abductions, that you are hearing speak of it in a negative sense are only half of who's out there. They are more verbal. That 50% is so much louder than the positive 50% that they seem to be the only reality. But you will understand that those interactions are quite neutral. Again, we remind you they occur by agreement. Individuals who do not, in that sense, acknowledge the agreement create a victimhood experience of the interaction. Individuals who understand that it must be part of an agreement and begin to explore what their half of the agreement is, what they are getting out of it, again, generally will file it as a personal, very special, very private part of their own lives. They would say that the reticulum are quite positive.
Okay. Well, what I'm trying to ask is,
Oh, try.
or
Oh.
yeah, well, I want to know the first ETs, extraterrestrials that come here. Well, first I want to say what I think. The Essassani can't be the first because we're not positive enough to interact with the Essassani right now.
To say that we cannot be the first is in that sense inaccurate. To say that it will most likely fall that we will not be the first, however, is.
Okay, so it's not because you're too positive to come right now.
That would not be the way that I would word it. It is that many individuals still place us enough above you that it would, in that sense, interfere with us acting as equals. Therefore, other civilizations which are more closely associated with your civilization at this time, which have in many ways allowed their presence to be known through your many forms of communication upon your planet, will be more likely in that sense to be the first that will acclimate your society to the idea, which would then, perhaps you can say in many ways, result in an opening for us to communicate with you as well. But it is not our point necessarily that that has to be the case.
The Zeta Reticulum, because they look so different than we do, is that one of the reasons that we fear them?
There are many reasons that they are feared. Upon your planet, different appearances in general, one that you will create. But very often those creating a victimhood scenario will in that sense simply fear that someone can get them at home. And therefore that will be what they use as a representative of something slipping in their reality and getting them, quote unquote, behind their back. But the idea is you create your own reality. Nothing is extraneous. Nothing can slip in and get you. If you create the fear that something can through that belief, you may again create that effect. But it is again still created by you. Nothing is happening to you.
Okay, I'd like to ask something else. After we become non-physical, and that is after the sixth density, right?
No.
Oh, fifth?
What you call fifth density is the first density in which you express yourself in this octave of creation as a non-physical entity.
Okay, do we continue to have sex?
Well, not in the obviously same way, since you will be non-embodied, and much of the definition of what you call the sexual act is physical. But you will understand that there will be a non-physical analog in the sharing of essences, perhaps you can say.
That's what, okay,
A
thanks.
different form of ecstasy altogether.
A different
Thank you.
form of thing.
Shut it!
Elan,
Ice.
we were talking about negativity or not negativity, but the darker side and the light side. And I was wondering.
Denial and acknowledgement.
Yes. Lately, I've felt a lot of feelings more deeply. I've been feeling my emotions lately than ever before.
Do you allow them to deliver the beliefs that underlie? First step, when you feel something, we generally apply this to things that you do not prefer to feel, but it can also apply to things that you prefer to feel, is to feel it. Many times a negative emotion comes along, you go, oh no, better distract myself. Don't want to feel that way. But the idea is, when you deny the feeling, you deny the underlying belief.
Right.
If you simply say to yourself, all right, perhaps this is not how I expected to spend the next 10 minutes, but all right, I feel miserable. Therefore, I will really feel miserable. I will allow myself to feel as miserable as possible. That is step one. Allowing yourself to create the feeling that you had decided, obviously, to create, and feel that feeling. Your willingness to do so then generally results in a point at which you go, all right, now there is only so long you will sit and feel something while you are allowing yourself to feel it. If you deny it or intermittently deny and acknowledge it, yes, it can seem to go on forever. But if you dive into the emotion, it will be short-lived. That is the nature of your creation of emotions. And when you get to the all right, now what part, the answer to the now what is all right, now that I have felt that, in the situation that I am in my life, right now, what must I have believed to have felt? Something will be forthcoming. Something will be obvious. Generally, again, if it was a negative emotion, it will be a negative belief delivered unto you. Now out from the dark into the light. Acknowledge it. This is what I have believed up till now. That is, again, the first part. The second part is to then drum up the belief you prefer to have in full acknowledgement of the belief you do not prefer to have. Allow yourself to try on the preferred belief. State it until you feel it. See how it feels. Try it on like a new pair of shoes. As you feel how the new belief would feel, Allow your imagination to provide how a person with that belief would act in whatever situation you are within or whatever you are about to create. Hand over that situation to the preferred you in your imagination, having acknowledged the old unpreferred belief. Your imagination will provide a set of actions specific to that situation. Those actions will be the actions of a person with the preferred belief. Now you will see you have two choices: to do the things representative of the old belief, or now to do the things representative of the new belief. Doing the things representative of the new belief can only yield a result consistent with the new belief, thereby giving you your evidence that believing is seen. Therefore, step 1, feel it. Step 2, allow it to deliver the message, deliver the belief. Acknowledge that belief. Step 3, state the preferred belief. Step 4, extrapolate how you would act with the preferred belief and act that way. That is how you already create your own reality, though in general you do not provide the positive alternative and simply seemingly automatically act upon the negative one. Do proceed.
Okay. With all that information, when I'm feeling, okay, I was thinking about the word compassion and the word compassion and empathy. When I'm thinking about people in other cultures and even people here that aren't experiencing things that you were talking about, experiencing is different than acknowledging or awareness.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm aware of the world and different things happening, and I'm not in, some of them aren't my preference, but they're here with me living on this world, so they're actually part of my...
Perhaps this will be of assistance to you. There is a distinction between what you call compassion and pity. One assumes the underlying power of all beings, and one assumes the helplessness of all beings. I need not tell you which is which.
Right.
But the idea is compassion is the idea of empathizing what someone is going through without buying into their own feelings of helplessness and understanding their power, even though they may not be willing at that particular point to acknowledge their own power, will give a different flavor to that compassion. If you are able to be of assistance in any situation such as this, by all means do. And this is the degree to which you can respond, the degree that you are response able to them. If you cannot, learn by whether or not you are having compassion for them or pity. If you are having pity for them, assuming their helplessness, that is a lesson for them.
Yeah.
They have all the power they need as well. And they can handle all their creations as well. Allow them to have the right to do so. Allow them to have the reason to do so. If you can be of assistance, be responsible to them. But never can you be responsible for them, or even for what they will do with your assistance. So simply where you can do something, do it. Where you cannot, simply look at how you are thinking and look at the messages and gifts that you are giving yourself, having pondered their situation, and perhaps thank them for providing the situation that allows you to do the pondering.
Okay.
That will be the reason they created that in your reality. They will have their own reason and their own right to do so. Will that suffice?
Yeah, there's more. This planet is moving so fast into awareness and
This is why many of the heretofore taboo subjects are being splashed all over your media. Because your mass consciousness and your individual consciousnesses can handle it. Whereas perhaps you had felt prior to this that you could not. So whereby it seems in many ways from one perspective that your planet is running amok in our point of view. It is flushing to the surface all that it has denied and beginning to address it, choosing societally the positive perspective. And this is one of the main signs or symptoms of the transformational age itself.
Yeah.
A purging of the collective unconsciousness.
Thank you.
Is that all?
One more thing,
You
which is
proceed.
different than this stuff. I heard lately a friend talking about the latest information on the crop circles having to do something with mathematical things about the crop circles.
Musical notes as well.
Yeah. Hey, I haven't been here for a while. So have you been talking about this?
No.
Okay.
Simply understand what you are saying and getting at, and that is simply one other entire slant upon.
Yeah.
You will also find some correspondence from time to time to what you call certain of your ancient pictographic languages. This has not yet been connected.
And that's exciting to me because I work with sound a lot.
Well, we had one suggested to you. You were present. That E.T. tone home.
Yes. It's to me.
We meant that literally.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Shut it.
Yeah.
Greetings.
I would like to know the truth about the experiment, the Philadelphia experiment.
All right. What is it you specifically wish to know?
I would like to know if it's true. If
You
it's
may understand that in that particular time frame you are referring to, particular experiments were conducted. Much of the technology, as you say, was provided by an individual you will refer to as Nikola Tesla. There was a particular effect whereby a particular what you would call battleship was in that sense. Perhaps one way to explain it, created to be out of phase with your particular dimensional reality for a short period of time. It was not in that sense homogeneous that the occupants of the experiment were out of phase in quite the same way, and it resulted in what you would call a disastrous, shall I say, result. That certain individuals were physically killed, and it was realized that this experiment was, in many ways, quite haphazard. There are certain sensational claims that have been made from this that we will not comment upon, but simply to say that from that particular, shall I say, idea, many individuals have misinterpreted and, shall I say, continued with particular stories that we do not particularly ascribe to. Is there, again, something else specific in this other than what I have said that you wish to know?
I was thinking that was something from the government to control people.
Well, not really. It was your idea of your government experimenting with what they would have preferred would have become a new style of weapon. In many ways, what you would refer to as invisibility was one of the goals. But in the way that it played out, again, with the haphazard arrangement of the particular quote-unquote experiment, it was deemed to be too dangerous to continue. That is our understanding of this.
I heard
Now,
that
there had been some subsequent research since then, but there is a great mythology which has now been created surrounding this.
I heard there was alien helping on that.
That is not our perspective. There was observation, but completely non-interferent observation. And this is, again, this is only my point of view, but part of the mythology that has arisen from this idea.
Thank you very much.
We thank you as well.
Elan,
Nice.
good evening.
And to you, greetings.
Continuing the subject of crop circles, there was an article in a tabloid magazine on the cover, and granted, most of these articles are fabrications, but
Quite amusing.
UFO researchers say that there's some truth in those articles at times. But this one particular article, the scientist claims to have, through the use of computers, determined the significance of the crop circles, and that it was a message from a certain civilization that an alien fleet would be arriving on this planet in 1999.
That is not our perspective.
So, okay.
Now, yes, it is a message. It is a very interpretable message, which will actually mean different things to different individuals and be completely correct to all of them. But it does not forecome or foretell the coming in that sense. And often these types of predictions will have an underlying supposition that they are coming to save you. No, no, no. We again respect and recognize your divinity, your sovereignty, your right to exist. We understand you are creators, and therefore whatever you are experiencing as a result is the direct result of your own creation. Therefore, it would be a disservice to interfere with that creation, regardless of if you choose a negative outcome. So it would never be our tendency in that way to do such a thing. It would be a disempowered state.
Okay, but it seems to me like you still haven't fully explained to my satisfaction what a lot of these symbols translate.
Well, we have on purpose refrained from doing so. For we have suggested that individuals interested in interpreting them will find that this will be more likely to be done intuitively by compiling the arrangement of the ones believed to be authentic in the approximate order which they occurred chronologically. And then from that point, you will make certain connections that then we may be willing to discuss and expand upon, but so far, no one has taken us up upon it.
Yep.
So the idea of placing those symbols in that way, obviously, was to engage you and members of your society in an exploration. If we, in that sense, wish to be more blunt than that, perhaps we would have simply spelled words out in your own language.
Well, if we don't have an understanding, or at least most people don't have an understanding of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics.
I
and
did
so
not say
forth,
Egyptian.
Well,
But the idea is some of them will correspond to one particular idea. Others will have other connections. But when you put them all together in a row, they unlock within you a certain idea. And being that I assume you have not yet done this, that is why you are not making much sense of what I have said.
but if we're not familiar, at least consciously, with a lot of these symbols, and
Intuitive
shapes-
understanding does not require familiarity.
I see.
Simply being in the right place at the right time, accumulating the symbols that you have attracted, and allowing your intuition to provide a sense of what you are seeing. That is the beginning of the process. They are keys.
Why have they appeared suddenly over the last 10 or 20 years when they never really did before? At least there's no recorded history of them having appeared before.
Well, you will understand that they have appeared throughout your history in various forms, but the frequency and the intensity of their appearance is simply coinciding with your readiness as a society to entertain these notions.
I see. I just wanted to ask you, you had mentioned before that on your planet, people that live there communicate by means of mental telepathy. And I understand that all citizens of our planet have that innate ability to communicate that way also.
Well, to some degree you do, even as you communicate verbally, but largely you disregard and invalidate what you are getting, and due to the very interesting complex social structure where you will generally be in denial about certain things in your own self, that you will then generally hide or be in denial to others. Very often you may have a very accurate sensing. Say to someone, I sense this, and if they are in denial about it, they will deny it, and you will say, well, obviously I have no sense of what is going on.
I see.
But when you remove this denial, you will find generally you are all quite accurate and perceptive.
Through meditation, is it possible to send messages to other people
Absolutely.
through visualization?
What will assist you is to not be hooked on any particular result and simply allow it to be received in whatever way it is. In general, it will not be received as a literal message. For instance, you can send a particular idea to a person. They may be walking down their street. Look down. There is a newspaper on the ground with a headline saying basically what you had sent in the message. Therefore, their receiving of the message, being that it will be in their path of least resistance, can come in many ways, often which will not be associated with you at all.
I see.
And this degree of synchronicity is ever prevalent in your society. Now that I have mentioned it, perhaps you personally will become more aware of it.
I was just wondering if you can read our minds.
We can generally empathize with you strongly enough to create similar thoughts at the same time, which is actually what you call mind reading. That is the actual mechanism. Not that you actually read their minds, but identify, empathize with them so strongly as they are that you create similar thoughts. So yes, this occurs. Now, we can share this with you when you allow us to, but the only place that we limit our own awareness so that we may continue to be non-interfering is where something that we would share would interfere with your own process. Either we will be aware that it will interfere and simply say no comment, or we will not know it in that moment. And that is our signal to ourselves that that would be interference for you to know.
One other thing, is there any way that we could, through creative visualization, see a UFO?
Oh, absolutely. Close your eyes, blank your mind, and allow the screen of your imagination to provide the pictures that it will. Do not consciously provide them yourself.
But I'm talking about if you're outside and it's a dark night and it's very, well, there's a lot of stars out and there's a limited amount of light. If you
If
could
there
just
are
look up
individual
and
beings
picture one,
present,
see one.
and you in that sense send your intentions, it is possible that they can be received. Generally, individuals requesting what you call a craft sighting do it, though, out of an underlying sense of need to validate the phenomenon. Generally, that request at this point in time will not be answered. So it will depend on the reasons for your wishing to do so. Simply having the desire, because it is something you wish to experience and explore, and going about your business, not fixating or obsessing on that desire, is paradoxically the quickest way to actually do so.
Okay, Elan, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And
Sure. Ace.
I would like to know what to do when you have a kid here. You just say that I have my daughter going to school and she's got to have the shots against the disease, against certain disease, because if she doesn't have it, she cannot go to school because you have to prove to go to school here that the kid, the kid got his shot and can go to school. What can I do to help?
Well,
Yeah.
largely, this is a personal matter and will be a matter of opinion. But we will ask you, what is your hesitance in, shall I say, participating in this idea, which is generally societally agreed upon?
Well, I know I have my immune system, and she's got her own immune system against virus or everything, You know what I mean by that?
Well, we understand. But what I am saying is, what is your resistance against this idea?
Well, I heard that whatever that was injected in the blood was not helping the immune system of the children, of the child.
Well, again, this will depend largely upon many of the beliefs surrounding the scenario. Understand the vaccination itself, though it would appear to have an effect, is merely an external symbol. So perhaps what I am asking you is understanding that yes, you do the healing. It is your immune system. What is your resistance to that particular external symbol?
Well, I wish that she wouldn't have that.
Oh, have you stated this to the proper, as you say, authorities?
Well, not exactly.
Have you, in that sense, sought to see whether you could, in that sense, shall I say, receive a waiver for that particular practice due to your beliefs?
Well, I couldn't do anything with it. She had to have it to go to school.
Is it already said and done?
Yes.
Oh, what will you do from this point forward?
But right now, I was trying to work, with my mind and with my subconscious, my house, to help her out to fight it right away, to fight
To fight what?
whatever the
Largely,
the-
she has accepted the symbol from our perspective as it was intended to boost her immunity. And therefore, her effect has been to achieve, because that was the expectation, that particular idea. So our perspective is she attracted a symbol, she used that symbol, she got the effect of that symbol. And from this point forward, it is up to you what you will do. But the power lies within her. And using that symbol is simply one expression of that power.
Yeah.
Now, if you continue to harp on the negativity of the symbol, perhaps you will allow her to, through her own agreement, create that effect. But is that truly what you wish to do?
No, I don't wish, I wish that she would be able to, just get rid of that. Whatever they injected in her blood, that's
Nothing has, from my perspective, altered her in any way that you would call negative. If this comes up in the future, our suggestion would be, in that sense, once again, to dialogue with the particular individuals, to share your ideas for doing so, and to express that your beliefs are such that this is how you would wish it to be, and you may find some result to that.
all right.
The willingness to be open and dialogue who you are, that is why you feel that.
All right, very good, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Shut it. Hey,
I'd like to ask you, do you think that
greetings, by the way.
do you think that black clothes or the color black has negative effects or vibrations on somebody?
Absolutely not. It is quite neutral and quite interpretable. What you call black, in a sense, will generally, from perhaps you can say a physical viewpoint, represent absorption, whereas white many times will represent reflection. And it will simply depend upon your labels and your reasonings. On a cold day, black may be quite the, shall I say, insulating thing to wear. Now, your society has many connotations attached to that, but it is up to you as to whether you will choose to express yourself in that way or not, understanding that that's how many individuals feel.
Okay. I have another question. You speak English, right?
No, I actually, in that sense, speak no language. Any channel that I communicate through will utilize their vocabulary, their understanding of language. Therefore, it was not necessary for me to learn the language or the language of many of the other planets, if they have a language that I communicate with, because the mechanism of the channeling allows the translation through the channel, utilizing his own vocabulary.
Okay, so if you would channel in somebody that spoke Spanish or French, you be communicating in that language?
Absolutely. And there are instances throughout your planet of individuals who channel, shall I say, beings from my stream who speak different languages. And therefore they channel in their given language. The path of least resistance.
Okay, one last question.
Oh.
Do you know of anybody, or do you yourself channel in Montreal? And if you do of anybody, could you tell me whom?
Myself, personally, no. However, one more. Our perception is that there are approximately 3 individuals channeling our stream in what you call that area. As to who they are or where you will find them, we are not aware, since it is not to the awareness of the channel of names and addresses. Simply now that you understand this, simply allow yourself to attract. One moment. Revision. 3 individuals in your Canada, not merely in what you have labeled.
Okay. Unless you want to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I have done nothing, and you have shared who you are with me. It is my joy. Shut it.
Elan,
Yes.
just to continue the black and white ideas,
Oh.
maybe that had something to do with judging the dark side and the darkness. As you know, when I was a little girl in the dark, it was a little scary sometimes. And maybe that just continued on to the consciousness of some people to judge a black clothes or black.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Or understand. Perhaps you can say another way to phrase it,
Yes.
other than that denial fills the closet, is that judgment is a form of denial. Therefore, judgment itself may also have the effect of seeming to fill up that dark space. Now again, this is only an analogy. Even what we are referring to for the purposes of analogy as a dark space is bathed within the one light of all creation. Simply, we are using an analogy in your language as the dark representing that which you have, shall I say, chosen not to look at, placed from your vision, obscured from the light of your being, and light being the willingness to acknowledge. But it is not literally that there is a dark space or a closet within you. That is simply metaphor.
Yes.
And there will be but a few more moments remaining to this interaction.
Elan,
Sharing. Hey.
what are the karmic repercussions of suicide?
They will vary, but in general, individuals will reincarnate and recreate similar situation so that they can complete what they had created the life to explore. Now, there are exceptions, but in general, that is what will occur. That, in a sense, you may say, is breaking your agreement, loosely speaking. And generally will only be an act of complete helplessness.
So then what happens once you break your agreement like that then?
Again, in general, after having died, you will reincarnate, create similar circumstances, and then in general play through them without choosing that particular, shall I say, escape clause.
And how would you perceive the work then of Dr. Kevorkian, the man that assists AIDS and terminally ill patients with suicide?
In what you would say neutral fashion. Some individuals, according to their particular ideologies, will label that as murder. Other will label it as mercy. We see the idea of both ideas, and in that sense, we'll not choose one or the other. Simply observe. It is not something that we participate in or something that we create upon our planet. Very individual.
Do you think that people then have the right to decide what they would like to do with themselves? Well, I guess they do. Of course they do.
Our particular perspective is that each individual has the right to choose their own reality. Again, in general, when that choice is of suicide, however, it is a choice made from complete lack of empowerment. Therefore, when you translate, as you say, or die, and then are, shall I say, aware in your power, you will remind yourself on some level, this is quite colloquial, I had forgot I had gone to do this, and recreate again similar circumstance to do that. Sharing. Female. Greetings.
Yes. When I was younger, I had I thought I had experienced something with spirits that were around me. That I sort of saw as lights, form of lights, different colored lights. I don't know if that was a dream or reality.
Well, what is the difference? You will understand that this reality is a dream, slightly different from your nighttime dream. But to answer your question more pointedly, it is something that you would have called quite real, even in this reality. What have you since done about it?
Well, I don't know if there was anything I could sort of do about it.
Well, the idea is this. It is a form of communication, and your willingness to simply be open and receptive is the only thing you quote-unquote need to do.
Okay.
Did it excite you or frighten you?
Well, at that moment in time, I was too young to understand what it was, so I was quite frightened. So.
Remember the following. You are a being made of love. If you simply continue to intend to be that loving being, you can attract nothing but loving beings. So knowing this, now being older as you are, move forward with this understanding, trust what you attract, and understand that everything you attract is exactly the right thing. In that moment, It is the most constructive thing. If you will begin to trust what is in every moment, what is right in front of you, not what will you do tomorrow, what did you do yesterday, but what is right in front of you, you will always find that everything you ever need is right in front of you. And if you are creating upset in a given moment, simply look harder. There is always something right there that you can do that will excite you, that will allow you to maintain your integrity, and will allow you to enjoy and grow. All right.
I've got another question about school. About ascending, because when I go to school and because I'm still in school, and when I get out will be the year 2000.
Oh, how exciting.
Well, around then, some point in time, I'm going to be, in the point that we're going to be ascending. Well,
According to who? And what do you mean by ascending? Now, many times individuals will assume that ascending means leaving your body and going up somewhere else. But that is not our understanding of what ascending is. Ascending, going up, refers to raising the vibration of who you are. And to not be confusing, you may simply understand that you will simply become a more expanded physical being. You'll still be here, but you will be enjoying and creating your life in a slightly different way.
answer my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Female.
Elan, I was wondering if, I guess we have made some kind of mass agreement to be to use marriage as some sort of tool, and have we agreed to stay, have the one relationship? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, some individuals will and some will not. You may understand that many individuals, obviously, large degree or to some degree, what you call marriage upon your planet will occur through what you call insecurity and the assumption that someone else is necessary to make you complete. And then when you attract that individual, you must hold and grasp onto them as strongly and hardly as possible, for if you lose them, you will lose yourself. But now you are beginning to understand that your primary relationship is with yourself, and that however you express that relationship can only be reflected in the other relationships. So if you draw someone to yourself from a feeling of incompleteness, only can that relationship reflect that incompleteness. You cannot, quote unquote, escape that which you deny within yourself. So simply as you begin to remember, to remind yourself, I am already complete, then when you attract a relationship, it will express that completeness. And sometimes that will take the form of seeming to spend entire life together. Other times, individuals will, shall I say, do-si-do to the next, or shall I say, different idea that will now be an embodiment of who you have expressed yourself to be. There is no right or wrong in this regard. In our planet, we do not maintain this exclusivity as a mass agreement, but there are individuals who will, in that sense, wind up leading full lifespan with only one individual. But it is nothing planned. Oh, I will plan to be with this being. It is more like when you transform, you simply say, well, that must have been a one-on-one. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Was there something else that you wish to know?
No.
Well, thank you. At this time, allow me to thank you all and understand that as you acknowledge the things within you that you heretofore have denied, you do not weaken yourself. You do not let down your defenses. You gain yourself. Everything that you are is all right. In the negative and positive manifestations within you, you get to choose. Understanding that awareness of negativity is all right and need not be accompanied by experience of negativity is your point of power. If you act from the positive perspective, you only get a positive result. And again, your awareness of negativity will be through others. If you can assist them, do so. If not, reflect on what you have learned from their choice and their willingness to display their divinity, their sovereignty. Be willing to, as you sometimes colloquially say, salute the divinity within each individual. That is the expression of what binds you, what connects you. You appear to be separate beings, but you will understand as you expand again that the reality you used to believe you existed within you. And in many ways, the parency will feel as though so did all the individuals. Everything is a part of you and a reflection back to you. That is how existence is lined up. You are the reality. You are the reality. When you say, I am in a miserable situation, you are being a miserable situation. That is the most accurate way to put it. I do not throw this in your face. Simply allow you to know that the moment you acknowledge, I am being a miserable being, then you understand you are doing something. And only can you do something else. I thank you for your willingness to open the many doors within you. We all walk together in one large house that is creation. I bid you a most fond and loving, pleasant dreams, and good evening.